Hello fellow witches, this is Demon Phoenix back with the one that everybody has been clamouring for. So you're just about to see here, top of the screen. Wham! Nice casual 100k on a Euphoria build. So everybody's been wanting the Euphoria build. It is still an extremely strong mutation. I would say that either this or the Metamorphosis build I did right after the patch dropped is the most powerful build possible, so we are going to dive into the optimized Euphoria build. There are two versions of this, and also you can mix up the armor set depending on if you want to be a bit more defensive or pure offensive. And so this is going to be Euphoria optimized properly, and I'm going to give my reasonings for everything there. We've got a fast metabolism version and a delayed recovery version. The fast metabolism version, I would say, is a little easier to maintain, and the delayed recovery version, when you're a bit more, if you want to use that instead, you have to focus on keeping the potion toxicity up with that, but it does get you some very powerful effects, whereas the fast metabolism one is just as strong. It's not quite got as much utility, but you just put on the decoctions and then you're good to go and use a couple of potions when you want with that version. So going through here, let's dive into the gear. The swords, we got either the Toussaint Steel Sword or the Toussaint Knight Steel Sword. I would usually go with Toussaint Knight Steel Sword. Arendite is extremely powerful, and we'd have Severance on both swords. You can have the Manticore gear with the Nilfgaardian Guardsman gauntlets as the gauntlets there. So 3 pieces of Manticore gear, levity on the chest. And this is very good because you want to get your critical hit damage, critical hit chance from those Manticore gears, and the Nilfgaardian Guardsman gauntlets will be treated as light because we have levity on the chest piece, and they add 50% critical hit damage. You can see that we've got very high damage there. So we've got resistances to slashing, piercing, bludgeoning are lower with this set than they used to be, but you can't hit the resistance cap like you used to be able to before protective coating was nerfed, and the resistances in general for the Witcher armor has been reduced. So we do reduce damage that we take, but it's not to 0 anymore, so we focus on a few different things and keeping that damage optimized. You can, if you want to go a bit more defensive, have the Ursine chest armor and the Manticore gauntlets. The reason you want to do that with the fast metabolism version of this build is because you need to hit 229 toxicity, which you will do with metabolic control and 3 pieces of Manticore gear, because each piece of Manticore gear gives +5 toxicity now. So you can see if you're using the Ursine chest, you've got the slashing, piercing, bludgeoning damage is a bit higher, elemental damage is slightly higher, resistance is slightly higher with this version, and the damage is still extremely high, especially once Euphoria is triggered. So if you want a bit more balanced version, that's when we go with the Ursine chest, and for the fast metabolism version you would want the other 3 pieces of gear, including the gauntlets, to be the Manticore gear, which means you lose that plus 50% critical hit damage from not having the Nilfgaardian Guardsman's gauntlets. I'll cover why the delayed recovery version doesn't need to have that combination of Ursine chest and Manticore gauntlets a little bit later, but 229 toxicity is the key that we need to hit, because you want to be over 225 toxicity with the fast metabolism version. And as you can see, there's a slight increase in the damages when you have the Manticore version. The monster resistances are still pretty much equal for both versions now. It's just you'd take more damage from human enemy types of damage with the Manticore chest. So here you can see we've got Toussaint Knight Steel Sword is the sword you would usually use. This is the level 100 version, and you could go with Geschäft or Army as your silver sword, but Arendite gives such massive bonuses from the way that its charges work, as it gets the 10 charges, and that is a total of 100% damage increase, and that is a true damage increase, which is slightly different than the normal bonuses in Witcher, which are just base damage increases for most things. So let's go over the skills. We have got the Euphoria as the mutation. As you can see here, I have got Metamorphosis and quite a few of the others unlocked, so I have 3 of the Strengthened Synapses skills, which are the slots in the middle of the build tree. So you could have this a lot earlier. You could get this easily as early as you could complete the Turn and Face the Strange quest. As soon as you get mutations, you could pretty much unlock 4 of them and have this at a lower level. So you've got Precise Blows, Crushing Blows, and Whirl and Rend, and then we've got Razor Focus and Resolve, both of which are extremely important. We love the adrenaline in this build. Adrenaline adds damage and is just extremely useful and powerful. So like I said, there's a fast metabolism version and a delayed recovery version. I'll cover those a little bit later. Fixative is a skill that I absolutely love now. I just find it's really good as that quality of life. It means that you keep your oils and you know that once you've applied the right oil, it's always going to be there. Synergy is what makes those red mutations. I've got 4 greater reds, and they're all plus 60% for the ones that are matched with the red skills, and that's because of synergy. Hunter Instinct now works, so we've got Hunter Instinct and Killing Spree, and we have still got Acquired Tolerance, which is very important, even though it's half as effective as it used to be, and Protective Coating. We don't have Heightened Tolerance. The threshold is now a maximum of 80%, and for a Euphoria build you always want to be way above that, so we don't have Heightened Tolerance any longer. Cat Skull Technique's very good. We've got Levity on whichever chest piece we're going to use, and so all of our armour is treated as light, and Metabolic Control adds that 30 toxicity, which is important for getting that little bit of extra damage. If you're going to be doing Euphoria, you might as well do it properly. We have got, there's like a flex slot if you want to take out anything like the fixative slot, then you could put something else there. Magic Trap if you wanted to potentially stop arrows and projectiles, like with the Metamorphosis build I showed that. And here is a level 100 version, and this is where you'd have that extra slot from Strength and Synapses, so you could put something like Sunder Armor, boost the red one of the red mutagens from 15 to 30. You could also put Arrow Deflection there if you wanted to do that same thing, or you could put in Magic Trap if you're not bothered about that little 15% boost, which is not a massive boost, but it's a little bit of a boost. You could have Magic Trap for a bit more versatility there. So this is the level 100 version, and now we go on to the 2 different versions and how they differ. So this slot can be either fast metabolism or delayed recovery. Now with fast metabolism, you want to hit 225 toxicity, and the reason this is important is because decoctions are now 50 toxicity. So we have Ekimara and Troll, and I think that's important because you'll be losing health outside of combat. Otherwise, I like Troll decoction for that. Lesser build makers, they keep putting Water Hag decoction in their builds. Do not do this. Warthog Decoction is not effective if you're taking any toxicity damage, neither is Invigoration, the sword enchantment. That's why we don't have them. People say things like, well, you get your damage back from Ekimara and from things like that, so you're always at full health and it's active. It is not. I will show this in a toxicity video later when I do it. Warthog Decoction is not active when you're above the 80% threshold, even with heightened tolerance, and it definitely isn't here with the 50% threshold. For the other 2 things, so we've got Ekimara and Troll Decoction, the other 2 decoctions, I go with Arakas for keeping your inventory as empty as possible and getting that damage resistance boost. I still really like that. This is all on the Death March difficulty. And the 4th one is Ancient Leshen, a personal favourite of mine. Every time you use a sign, increases your stamina regen for the rest of the fight. Very good for long single encounters like boss fights, or for fighting big groups of people. You'd never go and start a fight in a Nilfgaard camp unless you're a bit nuts like I am, but very useful for testing builds, and these mechanics are actually useful for big fights where you're fighting a lot of things like the La Cage aux Faux, that quest in Toussaint where you're Regis is in the cage, you know, places like that, hand spaces, stuff. So still can be very useful when you so that's why I really like that set of skills. So you can see here that this is level 53, and the strong attack damage, critical damage, we're always going to be criticaling most of the time because of Killing Spree, and you've got really high damage there at this level 53. You can see you do take a chunk of damage still, but you get it all back with Ekimara, which is why Ekimara is, you know, a really good addition to this build. And you can still use, like here, Superior Blizzard, Superior Swallow, Superior Thunderbolt. Fast Metabolism lets you activate those relatively quickly, and I would always prioritise Tawny Owl and Thunderbolt, and then you've got Superior Swallow and Superior Blizzard if you want to clear out a room, or you know, the Superior Blizzard's still very strong even though it only lasts a short amount of time. Superior Swallow for your healing, Golden Oriole, things like that, and that's why Fast Metabolism is a really good bit of this build. But you can see that you do have the potential for still taking quite a lot of damage, so you want to be making sure that you keep Gwen up. But even on Deathmatch, as these higher level enemies are, you can still get by with that, and so that's why this build is really powerful, and yeah, it's a really good one. So this is the delayed recovery version. Now I say that delayed recovery is the slightly higher maintenance version because you have to keep the potion toxicity above 55% of your total. Now, because we have such a high toxicity with everything being geared towards that with Euphoria, you can still use pretty much all of the potions and definitely all of the core ones, and still have enough toxicity to use a decoction whilst having a bit of leeway to keep your potion toxicity above that 55% of the total. So if we're about 229 toxicity, which we will be, you would need 126 of that to be potion toxicity, so not including the 50 decoction toxicity. You need the rest of it to have at least 126 potion toxicity for delayed recovery to remain active. So you can either just go with all the potions if you want. It makes it even easier to keep up delayed recovery. You just keep popping potions all the time, keep it above 55%. That's the easier way to track it. Or if you want, you can try and optimize it further, have one decoction active and then pile on the potions and keep them as high as that. So you've got a bit of leeway to keep the potion toxicity high, so I think it's perfectly reasonable to have a decoction. So you could go with Arakas for a bit more defensive utility. Here I've got Ekimara as the lone decoction, and the extreme power of the combination that I popularized, and I knew that it was going to be extremely powerful as soon as they rebalanced all of the things, and I saw how delayed recovery had been changed to 55% and superior blizzard had been changed to be in danger. The reason this delayed recovery version is so powerful is because you can have your toxicity really high and have all of those extremely powerful superior potions that are only supposed to last like 30 seconds or a minute, even with an alchemy build boosting the length of the potion duration, and instead you can have this to be active all the time. And you can see that we've still got superior blizzard active, very top right of all those ones there. We've got superior full moon for a bit of extra vitality, and the slowdown and power effects of the superior blizzard is just absolutely bonkers. Probably the most powerful combination that I have found in the post patch. And also when you're at 3 adrenaline, it gives you infinite stamina. It's an extremely powerful potion, and that's why I think delayed recovery is the most powerful thing. And like I say, I popularized that with the metamorphosis build, and this is, you know, I would like to say what makes me a little different from other Witcher builders is because I actually know what's going on. But yes, that's by the by. As you can see here, with the superior blizzard being active, it's extremely powerful. It actually also increases your defensive abilities because everything's slowed down. It's easier to avoid hits, it's easier to land hits, just extremely powerful. One significant bonus if you want to go with the defensive version of the build is having the Ursine chest and being able to keep the Nilfgaardian Guardsman gauntlets, and you can see it's a significant uptick here from 6,300. The strong critical damage is actually about 6,900 before all of your bonuses in combat, so that's a significant boost, and you can afford to drop below that 229 toxicity because you're not using the 4 decoctions, and you don't need 25 toxicity on top of that 200 for the decoction toxicity. You don't need that with the delayed recovery because 224 is absolutely fine. It's not a noticeable difference at all for that 5 toxicity. You're not going to notice that difference in the slightest. But you can have the 1 decoction active, still pile on all of the potions, get the defensive utility from the Ursine chest, so there you can see you take a little bit less damage, and then you still have all the potions active whilst keeping the 50% critical hit damage bonus from having the Nilfgaardian's Guardsman gauntlets instead of the Manticore gauntlets. So if you're going to use a more defensive version, unless you really loathe using delayed recovery and keeping that toxicity up for potions, I would say use the Ursine chest with the Nilfgaardian's Guardsman gauntlets and the delayed recovery version if you want to be defensive. So as you can see here, this is a demonstration of what I'm talking about, of understanding where the damage comes from with builds. Look at this damage with Arendite. This is Arendite with 10 charges adding 100% damage. 34k there on a level 104 in Drago Warrior. Another 37k with a strong hit there. A lot of this damage is coming from Arendite, and this is why people are so reluctant to move off a Euphoria build, I feel, is because they don't recognize where the majority of the damage is coming from. Euphoria is a significant boost, it's noticeable, but I don't feel it's out and out the most powerful mutation like everybody still thinks it is. I actually think that if you have metamorphosis used properly, like in my build, you are getting more benefit from having the 5 or 6 specific decoctions if you fix it to look like that. So as you can see here, we're still doing about 23k with Geschäft, which is the most powerful silver sword other than Arendite, and you're still doing a ton of damage and killing things in 2 hits, but massive difference in damage, very noticeable difference when you're using another silver sword instead of Arendite. So just be aware of where a lot of the damage is coming from. Arendite is bonkers, as well as Euphoria being very strong. So there, nice casual 43k on a Kikimor warrior. And this is how you can see, you know, those charges from Arendite add a ton of damage. So just be aware that you can live without Euphoria, people. You could do it. Don't worry, try it out. But this is still extremely powerful and would be arguably the strongest build in the game, either this or the Metamorphosis build, depending if you want to go pure damage. So as you can see there, this is all deathmatch. This is me showing a few things off of how the build works. But one thing I wanted to mention here is how much the oils matter. So here, without the matching oil on the sword, Hunter Instinct isn't active, and so we do about 17,000 damage there with a non-charged, you know, quick charge of Rend. But you can see the damage that you get, the additional damage that actually does come from having the correct oil, and this is why the oils are important, and I like having fixative as a quality of life, just to make sure that your oils don't run out. So there you can see that same quick chop does 20,000 when you have the correct oil, and you'd also be getting the 15% damage reduction from having protective coating. So extremely useful, and make sure you're using the correct oils with the build. Last little thing, I know that the double ability glitch still works, I know. Look, here is with acquired tolerance twice, which is meaning that you have a much higher boost, slightly higher boost from Euphoria, because you've got twice as much toxicity boost from acquired tolerance. You can see it there in the 3rd and 4th strengthened synapses slots. I'm not going to go over this in this video at all. I'll link to one of my older videos that shows how you do the double ability glitch if you want to do it. But here you can see, right, 22k there from a quick Rend as opposed to 20 like it was before, and here like 23, 24ish. The game's not difficult enough to cheat. I don't feel the need to recommend it. I want to optimize the builds properly within the constraints of the game, and I just don't feel the need. But if you want to check out my old video, you can still do the double ability glitch if you really wanted. I only ever used it for getting the 4th strength and synapses slot at lower levels, like when you start in New Game Plus, just because that was useful. So I'm not going to go into it too much, but there you have it. That is the absolute optimized and best Euphoria build available, and between either this or my Metamorphosis build, you'll find the most powerful build in the game for whichever suits your needs. So please like, comment and subscribe. I know everyone's been wanting this one. I hope it was worth the wait. Thank you very much, and I will see you all later on the path.